Hi, I'm Max Keiser. This is the Keiser Report. You know, the only good banker seems to be a drawn and quartered banker. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Tell me more, Stacy Herbert.
Max, I have a feeling you've read this first headline here. Banks still expect taxpayer to pay for their failure. This, according to Paul Fisher, the Bank of England's executive director for markets. And he disclosed that, quote, some banks have told us that they think they should not be required to hold capital and liquidity to deal with such extreme tail events, leaving the public sector to be the capital provider of last resort. This contradicts what these bankers say in public, Max.
Well, this statement needs to be examined for what it's worth. Here is somebody representing the bankers who is defying, who is basically shaking, his finger at the public and saying, ha, 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 we've got all your money. I mean, this is not acceptable.
Well, Max, this is Paul Fisher, and he's saying in private conversations, bankers have told him that they don't need to raise capital requirements as the Bank of England is requiring them to do. They're saying we don't need it because the taxpayer will bail us out.
Look, the whole crisis started when Goldman Sachs became a publicly listed company not that long ago. Before then, the partners had their own capital at risk. If they made a bad bet, they would lose money. Then they went public, and we started this era of moral hazard on steroids. Whenever a banker loses money, they put a gun to the head of government, and they enforce austerity measures. That's an occupation. That's not a free government. That's not acceptable.
Okay, Max. Well, it sounds like your message is spreading throughout the UK because I was sent this headline from a viewer of this program called on Twitter, Wicked Fairy Sad. She describes herself, Max, as pro-justice, equity, freedom of expression, anti-fraud, quangos, current Irish political system, anti-bailout, and pro-Max Keiser.
I know that chick.
Well, she sent this headline, calls mount to punish greedy banks who sparked credit crunch. So this is from the UK, and people are, like union members and activist groups are demanding harsher punishments against the bankers because according to a report this year by the New Economics Foundation, they said that banks have made £60 billion out of the financial crisis they helped create. Most of it is due to selling debt to the government.
Yeah, it's a bust-out scam. It's an insurance scam. It's an arson scam. And they get paid out on credit default swaps or other form of insurance, so-called insurance, and they collect money as mafia terrorist bankers. They're financial terrorists. That's what they are. They're terrorists. They get paid per acts of terrorism and vandalism. That's why I say those hoodies that rioted in London, if you gave them broker's license, the UK economy would grow. David Cameron's missing a huge bet here. All the hoodies, don't put them in jail. Give them a banker's license and start trading on the floor of Goldman Sachs. Your economy will grow.
I could see collateralized hoodie obligations. They could go big time.
Excellent idea. I'll buy 30,000 at the market.
Well, I think that's a good growth market, according to The Economist. If you look at their shoe-throwing index and their political unrest, their social unrest index, it could be a good winner.
Well, quick digression. In the U.S., they reported for the month 0 jobs.
Yeah.
And the last time this happened was 1945. America was fighting a war. Well, America's fighting a war again today. They're fighting against corrupt bankers, and guess what? They lost.
So here's an editorial I thought was interesting along these lines when we're looking at these fraudulent debts piling up upon our economy. Endgame, when debt is fraud, debt forgiveness is the last and only remedy. And this is from a writer called Zeus Yamuyanis. And first of all, most importantly, he points out that policymakers and politicians keep on calling them toxic assets. He said they're not toxic assets. They are fake assets. They don't exist. They're fraudulent. They're fraudulent nothingness.
That's right. It used to be that the world worked on a fractional reserve banking system. Then we went to a zero reserve banking system. Now we're on a negative reserve banking system. There is no there. It's just a matter of mathematical formulas that are being spurted out of a Cheese Whiz can being held by Christine Lagarde. That's all they have. There's no assets there. There's no money. It's just a fractional claim on a debt that will never be repaid.
I notice you're on like some sort of familiar term with Christy Lagarde.
Christy, yeah, Christy and I. She calls me up all the time. She's trying to get herself out of this mess she created.
Okay, well, this guy goes on to explain that productive wealth has been trapped in a web of parasitic theft, counterfeiting, liability evasion, non-regulation, and prosecutorial non-accountability. All the fundamental attributes of a functioning exchange economy have been warped to reward creative criminals.
Here, here. That's absolutely correct. And it's, moral hazard is the polite way to say outright larceny. They're arsonists, they're looters, they're plunderers. And, the guillotine is so 19th century, 18th century. You need something new. Well, how about waterboarding? Yeah, that could be, that's a modern way to extract pain on a terrorist. Waterboarding.
Okay, yes, well, because it's not torture. But listen, one thing that is torture, and we all agree, is austerity measures. And again, in this article, the calls for austerity are nothing more than the delusional efforts of a status quo to avoid the consequences of its own error and fraud and to profit evermore.
Well, fraud has become the de facto business model. It has replaced all productive planks of the economy. It's become captured by fraudulent peddlers of non-existent debts. And into that miasma of larceny comes things like GDP growth and CPI numbers, which are also completely fraud.
Well, yes, and all of our economies are spiraling into nothingness as these austerity measures are implemented in order to bail out those bankers who we now learn are secretly talking to the bank regulators and the central banks, saying that they actually have no plan on reforming themselves because they plan on dumping all of their fake assets onto the public once again, should it all fail again.
Exactly right. And everyone who's suffering with a savings account paying zero interest is in fact subsidizing the criminality.
And so let's look at how this fraud and austerity measures are being imposed across the world. Italy cuts tax on high earners from austerity package. So, Silvio Berlusconi announced a $66 billion or 45.5 billion euro austerity package. And part of it was a tax on people earning over 90,000 euros a year. Apparently, he's getting rid of that, leaving all the other stuff for the Joe bag of donuts. But that number, 45.5 billion euros, Max, made me think of something from 2 years ago. Milan police seize UBS, JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank funds. Now, this was due to the fraudulent toxic assets or fraudulent fake assets that were sold to Milan, and 600 Italian municipalities were sold 35.5 billion euros in toxic derivatives.
That's right. So these municipalities in Italy were sold fake securities that went to zero in value because they were fake to begin with. And now, here's Berlusconi saying he needs approximately the same amount of money imposed in austerity measures to basically pay now for the toxic securities that were purchased to begin with. And this is a pattern we see over and over around the world. It's happened in fishing towns in Norway. It's happened in Alabama in America. It's happened all over Italy. It happens all over the world. The municipalities, the governments, the local banks buy securities. German banks bought trillions of dollars. Societe Generale. Why is Societe Generale going to declare bankruptcy in the next 10 days? Because they bought fake securities from Wall Street. They created fake securities. They bought them with themselves. They bought them with BNP. They exchanged the fake securities with each other for a fee. Then that fee is paid to them as a bonus. And now, however, the implosion that's taking place due to the revelation that there is no white knight coming, there is no bailout that will get the Ponzi scheme going again, there is no stimulus package that will take unemployment anywhere over zero, and this thing is becoming worse and worse.
Yeah, I mean, Max, Societe Generale is one of the perpetrators of these fraudulent fake assets being sold around the world. And those names that were referred to in this article, UBS, JP Morgan, and Deutsche Bank, those are the three real heart of the nexus of these global derivatives. JP Morgan, in particular, owns the largest derivatives book in the world.
And what's amazing is that JP Morgan will sell a municipality or some countries some fake toxic derivative securities, and then to protect themselves from any blowback, they'll offset the trade with a credit default swap somewhere in another equally corrupt market. And so when it does blow up, they get paid out more than what was lost. So you say that they have to impose tens of billions of euros in austerity measures to pay for tens of billions of euros for fake securities. The person who sold them those securities had credit default swaps banked that they get paid out double or triple that amount to their bank accounts. This is how financial terrorism works. They create the financial problem using fake securities. They do insurance at the same time, and when that thing blows up, as it 100% will do, they get paid triple back.
Well, Max, what I'm saying, yeah, is the article about the Milan being wiped out by credit default swaps and credit derivatives, that's from 2 years ago. That's in 2009. That's 35.5 billion euros sold to 600 municipalities around Italy. 2 years later, it's 45.5 billion euros in austerity measures for Italy, but you never hear about this. All you hear is about those lazy Italians, those tax evaders, those people who want to retire at 55. 9 out of 10, well, in fact, probably 10 out of 10 mainstream media articles about Italy will be talking about how corrupt and like, you know, wasteful workers they are.
Right, the occupying force always scapegoats the locals. And if, in fact, these were shared risk by the people who sold them, well, how did the bonus schemes work out last year in Wall Street? Oh, record bonuses, 140 billion.
And then let's move on to this final headline here, Max. Italian town mints own money to fight austerity. This is the Italian town of Filetino, and they have introduced a new currency called the Fiorito in order to avoid these austerity measures which are being imposed across Italy. So the austerity measures, of course, as I said, they're no longer introducing a new tax on the wealthy, but they are cutting back on money to municipalities.
Well, this is what happens when, this is actually a good comment to see how the whole globalization movement over the past 10, 20, 30 years is falling apart, forcing local governments and local communities to create their own currency, their own trade back and forth, and to just secede from the prevailing bank gangster model. And so you're going to see a lot more of this, and into that mix, of course, is why people are resorting to the ultimate currency of currencies, gold and silver.
Exactly, and I have a take on this headline I think we could have is global TV show Keiser Report mints own money to fight banksters. I thought a good idea, the same way these guys are fighting the austerity measures, we could fight banksters with perhaps a Geo Keiser?
Oh, the Geo Keiser, absolutely.
Or a new SAR?
The new SAR. Oh,
the
yeah,
new SAR?
the new SAR, yeah. Yeah, the new SAR. Mm-hmm.
A Maxo-teen or a Stacy-teen?
Max and Stacy teen. So we're gonna print our own, issue our own collateralized Max and Stacy money.
Exactly. And well, you could have as a phrase, instead of "in God we trust," right, you could say "devalue at your own risk."
Oh gosh, that could be a problem. All right, Stacy Herbert, thanks so much for being on the Keiser Report.
Thank you, Max.
Don't go away. Much more coming your way, so stay right there.
The worldwide manhunt for him lasted for 15 years. A €1 million award was promised for his capture. Political mass murderer for the West, the national hero for many in his own country. The general of the Serbian army, Ratko Mladic, hero or criminal, on RT.
Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Time now to go to sunny Los Angeles and speak with artist Alex Schaefer, who was recently questioned by police for his artwork featuring Chase Manhattan Bank JP Morgan burning down. Hello, Alex Schaefer.
Hi, Max. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Hi, Stacy.
All right, let's show the people the artwork. Show the people.
Oh, my God. It's too hot for TV. Can you see it?
Yeah, it looks fantastic.
Look out. It's hot.
Yeah, I can feel it over here, buddy. You are burning up the art world. You put that up on eBay, and it's already attracting dozens of bids. The price is skyrocketing. People understand that the art wave of today is burning banks, and you're on the bleeding edge of this movement. Now tell us what exactly gave you that moment of inspiration to create Chase Burning.
You know, I kind of led up to it through a series of paintings that I started doing. One of them was these sort of fantasy riot scenes, because we've been seeing so much of that on television. And then there was also a series of just regular buildings that were on fire. Well, then I combined that, the chocolate and my peanut butter, was my love for impressionist plein air painting on location, combined with my with the symbolic fire of economic destruction that is being wrought upon us.
So you're kind of like the Cézanne of arson.
Yeah, Cézanne, maybe the Monet. You know who was a big artistic revolutionary was Gustave Courbet.
Yes, I've seen some of his works here in the Musée d'Orsay, right here in Paris. Fantastic. Now, you were visited by the police. How did that interaction go? What did they say? What did you say?
Okay, well, when I set up to paint this painting, I just brought my easel and my backpack full of art supplies, and I set up at a bus stop right across the street from the branch. And, you know, you do a plein air painting, it's street art. You're always dealing with people walking around and talking to you, especially if you're doing urban landscapes. You can't avoid people. And it usually takes about 3 or 4 hours, 5 hours to do a decent painting. And the response of the public, of the people walking by on the sidewalk, getting off the bus, there was a lawyer's office that I was painting right in front of. They all got it. You know, they thought that's great. They share their own, misery stories with dealing with banks or what have you, and they're like, "Thumbs up, buddy." And then at some point, about 3 hours into it, I saw a police cruiser go up Van Nuys and flip a U-turn, and two officers stepped out of the car and approached me.
And they were asked you some questions. How did the interaction go?
Well, there was the first encounter with 2 officers on the street when I was actually doing the painting. And they told me that someone had called in and felt threatened by my work. And so they were obligated to approach me because it became an incident. And they took my identification. They wrote down all of my information. One of the officers asked me questions along the lines of, well, this is 9/11, post 9/11. You could be a terrorist. Do you hate the banks? And I really thought that the incident, that was the conclusion. Just as a person talking to the police, and the police are just people, I really felt, okay, this happened, and that was going to be it. But I think the thing that got it to more of a weird level was that 3 weeks later, 2 officers, ununiformed officers, came to my house and knocked on my door and said, "LAPD," and I was home, and I opened the door, and they said, "Do you know why we're here?" And I said, "Is it because of the painting I did?" And they said, "Yes, we need to talk to you about that. Do you intend to do that?" Again, questioning along the lines of, do you hate the banks? This is post 9/11. You could be a terrorist. We don't know. And they wanted to see the painting. And at that time, I didn't have it. It was at the Hive Gallery. So I showed them just another beautiful landscape. And they thought, "Oh, that's lovely," And but they showed up, and I saw they had guns and bulletproof vest on and big kind of poofy jacket, and they were ready for anything. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking, but I think when people meet me, I come across very approachable and friendly. And again, as a person dealing with 2 people who are officers, I, in my mind, feel that this issue is concluded, that this is the conclusion. But again, I felt that way the first time. So if this gets kicked up to another level, then 3's a charm. It's a hat trick. That's going to be definitely, as what Google CEO said, that's crossing the creepy line.
Well, this is interesting, Alex, because typically artists react to terrorism. I'm thinking of Picasso's Guernica, for example, famous painting capturing a moment of intense slaughter in history. And what you're responding to and what people have responded to is that you're capturing, in essence, the terrorism being performed by bankers. The question should not be, are you going to do this to banks? But the question should be, when will bankers stop committing terrorism against us? Because those flames right on that bank represent America's savings. They represent interest rates at 0%. They represent a kleptocracy. Why the cops? Is there a new sense of police oppression in America? Has it come to that? You're living out there in Los Angeles. Are the cops really everywhere? The reports that we hear is that it's become a bit of a police state.
I'm not really feeling that. You know, when I took a trip to New York City and I went to Wall Street just to visit, because I remember going there as a kid in the 80s, and, you know, you could get a ticket and watch the trading floor. And going back there just a few months ago, it felt like, you know, the Gaza Strip or something. It was submachine gun police officers and surveillance vans. Now, I haven't noticed any locations like that in L.A., but with this encounter with the police, I really thought that was it. I thought, okay, these officers approached me. They talked to me. You know, it's funny because one of the officers said, well, you know, do you hate the banks? And it kind of along the line of your statement for the question, I said, well, I don't hate the banks, but I do perceive them now to be criminals as far as a lot of the activities that they're doing. So I'd throw it back to the officers and say, you know, you deal with criminals all day. Do you hate criminals? You know, you don't hate criminals. You just wish criminals didn't do what they do.
Well, the crimes that banks are committing should be covered under various legal restrictions over there at the SEC and the CFTC and other regulatory bodies. But unfortunately, those regulatory bodies are now owned by the bankers. So you don't have any law. There is no rule of law in America when it comes to banking crimes. But let me, I went over to my Twitter account. That's my Max Keiser, K-E-I-S-E-R Twitter account. And I asked for questions for you, because I told my Twitter folks that you would be on the show. So from Lisa Taggio, she asks that, will there be prints available of this painting and other Banks on Fire paintings?
I will be able to make prints, yes. So, you know, maybe we could do it on one of these websites. How about like coffee mugs and mouse pads and T-shirts?
This could be the happy face logo that defines a generation.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, it's, I got to say, all this media attention is surreal. And I'm just really stoked to be talking about this and also feeling like I've been completely true to my own art, you know, and everything I love about making art.
Okay, I'm looking at another question from my Twitter account from Mr. Canning. He says to ask Alex Schaefer, did you use oil as a symbol for the U.S. insatiable appetite for oil or pastel paints in your painting? What is your response, Alex Schaefer?
Well, you know, the oil in oil paint is actually, it's a vegetable oil. It's not a petroleum product. You could actually drink linseed oil or make a real tasty vinaigrette dressing out of it. But no, I didn't take my symbolism that far.
I'd hate to be the guy who turned his Picasso into a salad dressing on a lark and threw away $50 or $60 million. All right, so Alex Schaefer, going forward, how is this going to affect your painting career, I guess you could say? Are you going to continue to explore this theme, and how has it changed your thinking as an artist?
Well, absolutely. I mean, this is a theme. I mean, I have a number of themes. I love doing just regular old landscapes and nudes and portraits, and but because this theme is just so right in line with everything else that I like doing, it doesn't even feel like it's outside of my regular work. So absolutely. And as far as the art world goes, you know, Max, you're someone who came from, you know, Wall Street in the 80s, and you probably remember what that was like, and there was a big art bubble in the 80s. And I think my frustration began not with, let's say, felonious activity or market manipulation on Wall Street, but as a young, naive artist learning about the, quote, serious New York art world and coming to the conclusion that it is a game that is played by these big New York bankers, and it's like a little fantasy world for them where they can completely manipulate the art market, they can create art bubbles, they can capitalize and monetize that sort of thing. But it's a lot of art that really doesn't move people.
Now, do you have plans to burn any other banks?
Yeah, actually, I've got a couple more Chase ones. I got a B of A that's work in progress, and I was going to go and just do a little small Citibank today, and just squeeze one in. I mean, I'm inundated with calls and emails at the moment, and so it's kind of like, whoa, I'm shifting my priorities a little here from being a nobody who just, does whatever they want to having to answer all this media requests, which is great. But yeah, no, I mean, we're gonna keep it up. If I get that little piece done today, and it's a little gem, then I'll put that up on eBay, and I'll price that at 2 ounces of silver. So we'll start the bidding at $80.
Excellent choice of currency. Now, there's a famous phrase, liar, liar, pants on fire. So, keeping on that theme, how about a Lloyd Blankfein or Jamie Dimon portrait with their pants on fire?
Yeah. Liar, liar, banks on fire. How about that?
Yeah, excellent. Well, Alex Schaefer, that's all the time we have for this week. Thanks so much for being on the Keiser Report.
Thanks for having me on, Max.
All right, and that's going to do it for this edition of the Keiser Report with me, Max Keiser, and Stacy Herbert. I want to thank my guest, artist Alex Schaefer. If you want to send me an email, please do so at keiserreport@rttv.ru. Until next time, this is Max Keiser saying bye, y'all.